is an older version of my iPad. That I had in here for second
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, and after the pledge, if you would remain standing, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you remain standing, please. Tomorrow is the 4th anniversary of the horrible events in Sandy Hook, where 20 students and 6 teachers were cut down by an armed gunman. If you would recognize a moment of silence for 26 seconds to recognize each one. Thank you. Clerk, if you'll please call the roll and read the announcement.
December 13, 2016. Please be advised, this meeting is being taped for video and audio broadcast. Assisted listening devices are available. Mr. Bonifant?
Here.
Mr. Corsello?
Here.
Mr. Hempstead?
Here.
Mr. Kimmel?
Here.
Mr. Sacchinelli?
Here.
Ms. Melendez?
Here.
Mr. Sarasis?
Present.
Ms. Bowman?
Here.
Mr. Sims?
Present.
Mr. Kites?
Here.
Ms. Maggio? Mr. De Palma?
Here.
Ms. O'Toole Gianderco?
Here.
Mr. Igneri?
Here.
Mr. Livingston?
Here.
14 present, 1 absent.
14 present, 1 absent. We have a quorum. Next item on the agenda is the acceptance of the minutes of the regular meeting of November 22nd, 2016. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Mr. Igneri moves. Do I have any corrections, deletions, additions? Mr. Kimmel.
On page 9 near the top where it says $140,000, that should be changed to $140 million.
That's at the last part of the second paragraph. Any other corrections, deletions, additions? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes as amended by Mr. Kimmel? Opposed? Abstentions? Was that an opposed, Mr. Sims? Abstaining?
Yeah.
2 abstentions, Mr. Sims and Mr. Livingston. Next item on the agenda, public participation.
Susan Wallerstein.
My name is Susan Wallerstein, 223 Wolfpit Avenue. I'm here as the chairman of the Arts Commission to speak about agenda item 7D, which is coming to you from the Ordinance Committee in a nice, sweet little one-page document creating a public arts commission. And I want to just focus my remarks on, there are 2 words in there I'd like you to focus on, and also 2 reasons I'm hoping you'll pass it. The 2 words are connect, which in the 3 years I've been chair of the Arts Commission, we've trained 50 to 60 volunteer docents from 7th graders to 77-year-olds. We have brought local graphic designers and artists to students to engage in the business of art, connecting the art with the profession. We've created signage, brochures, and digital resources to help Norwalkers and visitors understand our arts, and we've also assumed responsibility for assisting with graduates of Norwalk Public Schools, and I see Louise here tonight, not for this reason, and retired teachers who now jury the Norwalk Schools Public Art Show. So that's connecting, examples. Stewarding, accepting, maintaining, and deaccessioning. 3 critical functions for our public art. So this year, David Cole donated anchor watt rubbings to Center for Global Studies. The late Bruce Mellion his family donated his art collection. Charles Perry, an internationally renowned sculptor, his family engaged in discussions. Someone has to answer those calls, someone has to process it, someone has to put it on inventory, and that's accepting. Maintaining, we've been responsive to both the Board of Ed and the Anti-Graffiti Task Force. And then when installations of public art with the best of public intentions get covered by graffiti, fall apart, or become damaged, we need a process, be it Ryan Park, be it under the 95 bridge. So we're not the decision makers, but I think we're value added to the city, working with risk management and many other departments to help that happen. So I think we do good work. The two reasons I encourage the council to proceed: one is continuity. Many people think the Arts Commission started under Mayor Moshe. Others of us who have history, mine goes back 45 years, remember Cliff Barton, who was a chair of an Arts Commission under Mayor Collins, I believe. And that legacy has continued with Becky Christopherson, Emil Albanese, and others. However, in its current condition, its current status, if any mayor or if citizens aren't interested in having an arts commission, and we've had tens of years where that's happened, we don't have one because it's not codified in charter. The second reason is funding eligibility. We learned last spring that the DECD grants to municipalities are only available to municipalities that have an official arts commission. That's the primary driver of the ordinance. So thank you very much. I'll remain for any questions.
Thank you.
Charlie Taney.
Good evening. My name is Charlie Taney. I live at 9 Outer Road. I'm the president of the Manresa Association. We represent over 900 households here in Norwalk. And I want to address the item on your agenda involving the economic impact analysis that we hope that you will approve tonight to be done in partnership, a public-private partnership between the city of Norwalk and the Manresa Association. So I just want to offer two reasons why I think it's important to do this economic impact analysis and work towards a good outcome for that property. First, I moved into the Village Creek neighborhood here in Norwalk about 9 years ago, and before that I lived in Old Greenwich for 25 years. And I commuted to New York every day, and I commuted past the closed Coscob power plant. That sat there closed for 29 years. So when the Manresa plant was mothballed 3 years ago, that's when I said to myself, I don't want to be looking at that plant crumbling into New York, into Long Island Sound for the next 20 years. We better get busy and start working for a good outcome on that property. So, and I think what you see happening is that nothing's happening. It's been 3.5 years and nothing's happening. If you ask NRG, the owners of the property, what's the outlook for the property or what are your plans for the property, what they tell you is, we don't really know, it's to be determined. And if you're the CEO of that property, if you're the CEO of NRG who owns that property, the cheapest thing for you to do is nothing. Do nothing, just sit on it. And do what they did in Coscob, sit on it for 20, 25 years, however long, just let it sit there. So we don't want to see that happen. We're working for a good outcome from that property. That's what got us started. And I hope you feel the same level of urgency to have 125 acres right on the Norwalk Harbor be advanced towards a good outcome. And this economic impact analysis that we would undertake in partnership with Norwalk will move us towards a good outcome. The second reason I'd urge you to consider this is because it will give you, the Common Council, or your successors, if when the day comes that NRG comes before you with a recommendation on that property. I mean, it is private property, it's their property. They're going to bring you a recommendation at some point on what to do with that property. The economic impact analysis will put you in the position of being able to make an informed decision. You'll have your own metrics, your own data that you've developed in partnership with the Manresa Association on that property. So when that option comes before you, whatever it is, you're going to have a lot of information, your own information, not depending on their information when they come before you. So I think the ability to make an informed decision is the other reason to do this. The last thing I want to do before I step down is to thank the city of Norwalk. The Manresa Association brought the idea of the economic impact analysis, which we developed with UConn. We brought it to the city, and we said if the city will partner with us, We'll pay for half of it. We'll raise the money for half of it. And the city stepped up after they got into the idea. And I want to tell you that the team that the mayor put together to work with us was just terrific. And they took, many departments got involved in a task force, and the city really took what we brought to the city to a whole nother level. And it made it a much more robust, strong study than what we originally brought. So I thank the city for that. And I also thank the city for the steering committee that was put together to come to the firm that you've been recommended to you today, Fitzgerald and Halliday and their partner firms. We had a steering committee that included the purchasing department, the Norwalk Redevelopment Agency, the Economic Development Agency, Planning and Zoning, and we also had 2 of your common council members. And we went through a very long process. We put an RFP out. We had 6 firms provide proposals. We had 4 firms come in to make live presentations. And that steering committee worked together all through the spring, summer, and fall. And after the presentations, we made a unanimous choice of Fitzgerald and Halliday, a terrific firm. And I promise you, if you were with us on that committee, as 2 of your common council members were, it was really a first-class piece of work. And it was led by the purchasing department here at the city of Norwalk. So I think you could be proud of how the city stepped up in the process, and we're certainly proud. And finally, I have here a check for $75,000. This is the Manresa Association's half of the $150,000. We promised we'd raise it. We did. I was advised to bring a cashier's check to this meeting, and I'm ready to hand this to the city of Norwalk as soon as you give us the green light. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tony.
It goes to the chair of the Finance Committee.
Ruth Sternberger?
Good evening. My name is Rita Steinberger, and I live at 112 Gregory Boulevard in Marvin Beach. And Marvin Beach is one of the communities that is a member of the Manresa Association, and I'm here tonight in support of your item number 2 on your agenda, funding the program. We live on the east side of the harbor, and from almost any point on River Street, River Road, we can see the old plant. It's quite an eyesore, as you'll all probably agree. I think it's very important, I think my community feels it's important to support this program and get an economics analysis study completed so we know what the potential uses of the property could be. I think it makes us forearmed when NRG comes back to us, and if they don't, it gives us a leg up to see what we can do to be proactive. My particular concern, though, about this property and the urgency with which I think it needs to be addressed is because of the massive amount of coal ash and hazardous substance located on there. And I'm concerned with the talk of rising tides, increased storms, a structure around that facility that is abandoned and potentially crumbling, and the possible overrun of part of it in big storms, which would cause some runoff and harm the sound. It has a premium spot at the entry to the harbor. Everyone sees it coming in and everyone sees it going out. And I think we really need to work together to try and identify a way to move forward with this, whether we bring it to NRG or elsewhere, to see if we can get this going. And I think the first step is to sign this agreement and have this program commenced. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Mailing?
Thank you. I'm John Mailing. I live on Seabreeze Place. I cannot see the power plant, but I know where it is. Like thousands of us who kayak around that part of Norwalk or who boat there, the property is important. I'm here as not so much as a resident or as a member of the Manresa Association, but as president of the Norwalk Land Trust. It's very important, regardless of how this site is ultimately disposed of, that the city be protected from an environmental standpoint. The Manresa Association has, in writing from the Trust for Public Land, from the Nature Conservancy, from Save the Sound, from Sound Waters, and certainly from the Land Trust, expressions of deep support and deep concern that the already much degraded environment of Manresa Island not worsen, but in fact be addressed and improved. That's in the city's best interest. This group of people from Fitzgerald and Halliday were the ones selected from 7 different firms who wanted to do business with us and to help us to approach this problem. They have already suggested ways that even with development, there are ways to address the development in such a way as to maximize the protection of the environment. It's a very positive way. They address resiliency, how to give the city information that it will need to be certain that in the future that that particular property is as protected against things like storm surges and global warming as can possibly be. Right now, the city receives something in the neighborhood of $400,000 in tax revenue from the site as it is. If nothing happens, I feel sure that the owner will be back to the city as often as they can get appointments to do so, to either reduce it or space it out or make it less. So it's important for us to recognize that in the process of going forward, not just to look at it environmentally, but also to look at it from the standpoint of what really will be the costs, and are there some revenue opportunities, to be sure that we don't turn down something that could bolster our tax revenue from ultimate use of the property for reasons of ecological or environmental concern, which can be addressed. So from that standpoint, I would add my voice to my colleagues and urge you to look favorably on bringing these folks on board and making sure we've got a good outcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul Cantor.
Good evening. My name is Paul Cantor, and I live at 184 Philo Street, Norwalk. I came here tonight to ask you to take the lead in bringing our community together before the January 20th inauguration to reassure those law-abiding members of our
Mr. Cantor?
Yes.
The rules of the council are that you can only speak about an item that's on the agenda.
Okay.
So I know you sent an email to all the council
Yes,
members, and I
that's
know
right.
they've read it. So we appreciate you being here. We appreciate your position, and I'm sure we'll take a good review of it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Murphy.
Good evening. My name is Jim Murphy, and I'm from 40 Meadow Street. I work at 40 Meadow Street at LaJoy's for approximately the last 27 years. And I am an active member of the Manresa Association. And I just want to throw our hat into what John and Charlie have done. And as a group, I represent a group of commercial businesses and landowners from Wilson Avenue, Meadow Street, down Woodward Avenue. And we as business owners feel that it's very strong that we create a synergy with the neighbors, because we're neighbors and landowners and taxpayers also. And we just want to throw our hat in and say the economic impact analysis is a good thing, because having the knowledge that you'll get from it will hopefully get us to make important, good decisions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Mushak.
I used to be able to hop over that railing. I can't do that anymore. Good evening. Mike Mushak, 50 Elmwood Avenue. I live in South Norwalk, about a mile and a half away from Manresa Island, but I can see it from my house. I strongly support the efforts of the Manresa Association and The Fitzgerald and Holliday are an excellent firm. They've worked for the city on many past plans that I know well and use extensively over many years in volunteer advocacy efforts and as a past zoning commissioner. Good planning may sometimes seem like a tedious or even frivolous effort, but in the end it is the basis of smart decision-making that best serves the public's interest. This is a challenging property to develop, and it will take a bold and creative solution to figure out what to do with it. It's almost completely covered by the FEMA 100-year floodplain, as well as the narrow access roads leading to it, including Woodward and Meadow Street. They're all in the 100-year floodplain. One dream that I have is that, which I'll share, is that the property will become a restored ecosystem covered with nature trails, viewing platforms, and environmental education signage, attracting bird watchers and nature lovers from all over Norwalk and the region. At first, this may seem like it denies the city precious tax revenue at the $400,000 a year, but if done right, the economic benefits from this far exceed any tax revenue from developing the property. Cape May figured this out. They preserved with Nature Conservancy a piece of their waterfront property that was degraded. They get $300 million a year in Cape May County alone in benefits, economic benefits. That's hotels, restaurants, retail, etc. This is called nature-based solution, and this is what's called, it has a triple bottom line, not just economic benefits, but also public and ecological. That's a triple bottom line. That's without developing the property at all. And again, if you do it right, it's one possibility. It's just an option. I would also encourage Fitzgerald and Holliday to consult with the Center for Creative Community Development in North Adams, Mass. This organization has published multiple case studies of economic benefits of cultural tourism, including art museums in former industrial buildings such as Dia Beacon in Beacon, New York, and Mass MoCA in North Adams, Mass. I've been to both many times. They're pretty fabulous if you haven't been. Both of these institutions I just mentioned bring tens of millions of dollars of economic benefits every year documented to these towns through cultural tourism, as well as creating hundreds of new jobs. Why not explore turning the iconic mid-century modern power plant, after taking down the smokestack and the larger piece, turning it into a cavernous, light-filled art space, complete with an enormous generating turbines and picture windows as a backdrop. We could possibly partner with the Whitney or the Modern Art Museum and make Norwalk a cultural destination that would benefit the entire city. Lastly, if the property could become part of the federal McKinney Wildlife Refuge, a visitor center could be built at federal expense with a marina for private boats and a water taxi landing from downtown South Norwalk and possibly even Wall Street. This destination would draw even more visitors to nearby Sheffield Island, helping support the Seaport Association in its ongoing mission to preserve our natural, cultural, marine history. So as you can see, there's lots of possibilities. I just wanted to take the few minutes to tell you what I dream about. I don't see a giant residential development on that property. I think it would be horrible for South Norwalk, traffic, et cetera. And we have a carrying capacity of the harbor, as our great harbor management plan describes, and I think we've reached that carrying capacity. It's all documented. Lots of scientists have looked at this already. Thank you. Is that the bell?
That's the bell.
Wow, I am finished. Thank you, and please support this. I know you all do.
And I gave you extra time.
You did? Well, it's that time of year, isn't it? Thank you so much.
Excuse me, I'm reading from handwriting. It says Joe, I think Hawley.
I'm sorry, I should come to more meetings. I misunderstood. I thought that was an attendance list.
Ah. Well, you signed in the whole
You
neighborhood.
signed in a bunch of, are they all here to speak?
More people underneath. They don't want to speak either.
Okay.
I gave you time.
Well, thank you for being here. We appreciate the fact that you're here. I think that closes the public participation session unless somebody did not have an opportunity to sign up and wishes to address the council. Seeing none, we will close public participation. Next item on the agenda, resignations and appointments. And
Just like one, I should have said, members of the Fitzgerald Holiday team are here tonight.
for any questions that we may have.
Ask questions, the experts are sitting right here behind.
Okay, thank you. There are no resignations, appointments, or reappointments to go over. Under mayor's remarks, I have several. This is the busy time of the year, and as such, we have a lot of different events throughout the city of Norwalk, which is one of those things that makes Norwalk the interesting and exciting community that it is. This December 15th at 11 a.m., the West Rocks Middle School Jazz Ensemble will perform a holiday concert in the atrium of City Hall. It's really always a fun event, and to see the talent of some of these young people as they get ready to move on to high school and join the Senators Marching Band or the Norwalk Bears Marching Band. That always brings so much recognition to our community. Also on Thursday, 12:15, there will be an open house public design forum in the community room for the public to see the plans for the future use of Freeze Park. For those of you who may not know where that is, it's at the corner of Main and Wall. It's a little sliver of land right next to the Norwalk River, and it's quite an interesting piece of property, and we've got some pretty good plans for it. Additionally, the redevelopment agency will hold community meetings to review the project timeline for the process of Ryan Park remediation and the schedule for park improvement. There will be two, right now there are two scheduled. Thursday, December 15th at 6 p.m. at 149 Water Street. Friday, December 16th, the next day at 10:30 a.m. at 149 Water Street. So anybody wishing to take a look at the plans, have some comments on what's going to be happening at Ryan Park, I would encourage you to attend. On Friday, December 16th, it's an exciting day for the Carver Tech Center on Academy Street, actually on Richard Fuller Way. We're going to be cutting the ribbon for the new Carver Tech Center, bringing technical capabilities to the young people who go to Carver. It's quite an amazing place, and if you can stop down there, I think you'll be impressed. Also on Tuesday, December 20th at 11 a.m., we will launch the new Norwalk City website. Our IT department has been hard at work working with the community, trying to get feedback and designing our website to make it more user-friendly. So when you click on the website, some of the things that you had to search for before are going to be right there for you to click onto and be able to get to, so you won't have to navigate through a bunch of different levels of the website. And I think you'll find it very interesting. The public, as well as the staff, participated in the process, and we'll be talking more about that on December 20th. The evening of 12/20 at 7:30, Brian McMahon High School will present its annual Poinsettia concert. If you haven't attended in the past, it's an amazing presentation, really that shows the talent of the young people that we have at Brian McMahon High School. And I know the Norwalk High School is doing their the candlelight service. I don't have the date of that, but again, it'll be on their website as well, and as well as in the paper. Both of those events are really absolutely amazing. I know virtually it seems like the entire school participates, and it shows the wonderful talent, not only singing, dancing, but musical talent of the young people in our high schools. Two holiday events will be happening on the morning of Wednesday, December 21st at 10:30. Again, the West Rock String Orchestra will be in the atrium of City Hall performing holiday music. And at 11 a.m., the city will be presenting donations of gifts and food to the Salvation Army, the emergency shelter, and to person. And we thank the generosity of our city employees. Over the past month, we've been bringing food and gifts and things to bring into our drop boxes here, and we'll be making that presentation on December 21st. And it's always a great event because we know that we're helping some of the people in our community that are less fortunate than we are. I would wish all of you a very Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, and most especially a healthy, happy, prosperous New Year on December 27th at 5 p.m. at Stu's. They will have a menorah lighting. If you missed the Christmas tree lighting that we had at Stu's last week, it's always a great event. And as I always like to finish up on wishing everybody a happy holiday and a Merry Christmas, please keep in your thoughts and prayers those military men and women that continue to serve around the country and around the world, protecting our freedoms, that gives us the opportunity and the right to be able to celebrate Christmas, be able to celebrate Hanukkah, to be able to worship as we please, to give us those freedoms that we sometimes take for granted. And they're just people that a lot of them won't be coming home for Christmas because they're still on duty and won't be able to get leave. And we're hoping that all of them come home safe. So thank you very much. Mr. President.
Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry, just one more holiday event. The Norwalk Library is going to be having their Happy Holiday Show, which is going to be December 22nd from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. Local residents, Mark Monroe, who I think almost everybody in this room has seen him over the last 12 years. He plays the grand piano at the Stanford Mall. He'll be accompanied by Sherry Dobrin, both Norwalk people, and they're going to be doing a holiday show with all kinds of holiday music for families, and it's free to the public. Love to see you there.
Thank you, Mr. Soresas. Does anybody else have anything that they know of that they think people would be interested in seeing? Okay.
No, but I would like to know the time for the Carver.
For the Carver?
Okay.
You make me go back here, don't you?
Yeah.
4 p.m.
Thank you.
4 p.m. Mr. Igneri.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had a few comments before getting to the consent calendar. First, I was on the committee that did the search for the consultant to do the economic analysis. And we narrowed it down to 4 finalists. And we had a day starting at 10 a.m., which was going to go to 4 p.m. And I was actually dreading it. You know, this is going to be a long day, very technical. Well, one presentation after the other was outstanding, and I never lost interest. I stayed involved. At the end, it was interesting to find that the 8 people that were listening, part of the search committee, we all paused, and then someone said, "I like Fitzgerald and Halliday." And I said, "I do." And before you knew it, the 8 of us unanimously agreed that quickly that this was the outstanding organization we wanted to help us plan for this future use of this property. So I fully support it, and I look forward to our vote.
Council President, I have one item under General Council business before the consent calendar.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I just wanted to make a comment or a suggestion, or actually I'm asking for under Corporation Council, maybe next council meeting that we hold, that we have an item explaining the duties of the Corporation Council, because I've had some constituents come to me who were confused about the Corporation Council's duties and whether or not they represent the council and the departments, or whether or not they are supposed to represent the Board of Education. I'm aware that the charter says that they are supposed to represent boards and departments. However, on the city's organizational chart, the Department of Education is separate, and they also aren't listed under the city departments or under boards and commissions. So hopefully next time we can get some clarification on that as an item on the agenda.
We could, we could provide you with like a memorandum of law explaining what the role is of the Corporation Council.
I think the public also wants to know, so if we can just have an agenda item on the next meeting.
That's fine, but I think in advance, we could also try to prepare something in writing for you as well. I think it would be helpful. That's no problem.
Okay. The next piece of business is that the spirit of the holidays is leading to a number of council members spending time with their family the last week of December. Consequently, we are going to cancel the council meeting of December 27th. The next meeting will be on January 9th at 7:30 p.m. Lastly, I would like to wish everyone a very happy holiday season and a prosperous and healthy new year. With that, we'll ask Mr. Kites to read the consent calendar and remind Mr. Livingston that he's up on deck for January 9th.
Thank you, Mr. President, for this
You look enthused.
early Christmas gift. Item number 6A, Corporation Council, authorization for discussion of settlement of Dwight Bingham versus City of Norwalk. Now moving items 7B1 under Public Works Committee. Authorize the purchasing agent to issue a purchase order to Crowley Ford LLC for the purchase of one 2017 Explorer for a sum not to exceed $28,613. Account noted. Item 7B2A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with Advanced Alarm Security Systems Incorporated, RFP number 3709, for the replacement of the CCTV system at the Department of Public Works Operations Center and Transfer Station for a sum not to exceed $23,601. Accounts so noted. Item 7.2B, authorize the Director of Public Works to issue orders on agreement Advanced Alarm Security Systems Incorporated, RFP number 3709, for the replacement of the CCTV system at the Department of Public Works Operations Center and Transfer Station for a sum not to exceed $2,360. Accounts so noted. Item 7B3, approve the discontinuance and abandonment of a portion of Hanford Place along the northern boundary of the Hanford Place right-of-way at 13 Day Street, tax lots noted, identified as parcel X1, consisting of 92 square feet on a map on file in the Department of Public Works entitled Property Survey, depicting street line revision and extinguishment of easement at 13 Day Street, prepared for Trinity Washington Village Limited Partnership and the Norwalk Housing Authority, Norwalk, Connecticut, dated September 12, 2016. Item 7B4A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute any and all documents in order to finalize the discontinuance of the release of the city's interest in the discontinued portion of the property comprising the abandoned portion of Hanford Place along the northern boundary of the Hanford Place right-of-way at 13 Day Street, tax lot noted, identified as parcel X1, consisting of 92 square feet on the map on file in the Department of Public Works entitled Property Survey, depicting street line revision and extinguishment of easement at 13 Day Street, prepared for the Trinity Village Limited Partnership and the Norwalk Housing Authority, dated September 12, 2016. Item 7B4B, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute a quick claim deed releasing any interest of the city may have in parcel X1 in favor of the Norwalk Housing Authority for purposes of the Washington Village Housing Redevelopment Project. Item 7B5, authorize Mayor Harry W. Rilling to execute any and all documents for the purpose of incorporating parcel X2, consisting of 387 square feet in the public right-of-way known as Hanford Place, in order to widen the roadway along the northern boundary of Hanford Place right-of-way at 13 Day Street, tax lot noted, as depicted on the map and on file in Department of Public Works entitled Property Survey, depicting street line revision and extinguishment of easement at 13 Day Street, prepared for Trinity Washington Village Limited Partnership, Norwalk Housing Authority, Norwalk, Connecticut, dated September 12, 2016. And so item 7C1A, authorize the mayor, Harry W. Rilling, to execute an agreement with STC Building and Property Management for the Norwalk Concert Hall interior ADA improvement projects for a total not to exceed $41,350, and account number is noted. Item 7C1B, authorize the Office Building Management to issue change orders on the contract for the total not to exceed $4,135. And Mr. Mayor, that is the consent calendar as read.
Mr. Neri?
Is there everyone in agreement with the consent calendar read? Everything's okay? And then I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the consent calendar as read? Aye. It's unanimous. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I turn it back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Neri. Mr. Kites, item 7A1.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to read and move the item 7A1. Council members who are considered to be affected are asked to state their name, the name of the affected organizations, and the specific nature of the conflict for public record so that the waiver request may be filed with HUD as quickly as possible. And Mr. Mayor, I believe there are few members of the council that would like to speak on the reasons why and discuss their conflict.
Ms. O'Toole-Giandirko?
For the record, my name is Shannon O'Toole-Giandirko. The affected organization is the Carver Center. My husband, Joe, is the site director at the Ponus Ridge Middle School Carver location. He oversees that every day after school. So that is why I have a conflict for Carver receiving any funds.
Thank you. Any other disclosures? Ms. Bowman?
For the record, my name is Councilwoman Phaedrell Bowman. The affected organization is serving all vessels equally or safe. The nature of the conflicts is there's a potential conflict regarding some reimbursements and the fact that I receive a 1099 miscellaneous, so we just want to be safe.
Thank you. Any further disclosures? Seeing none, we don't have to vote on the item.
I believe so.
No. Okay, next item is item 7A2.
I'd like to read this, move it, and also speak on it briefly. Item 7A2, approve the entering into a contract with Fitzgerald and Halliday for the development of the Manresa Island Economic Impact Analysis, not to exceed $150,000, account number noted, and improve the Economic Development Director to execute the contract and related documents. And Mr. Taney, I think you hit it right on the head right there. Eventually, I do also believe the NRG will be sitting in front of this council or future council, whenever that may be, hopefully, sooner than later. And when that does happen, I feel having this study in place and knowing cost, remediation, and so forth, we can go to that negotiating table with what we need and the tools we need to be able to negotiate. Because, of course, we're talking about considerable amount of remediation, and to know those numbers, it would be very helpful. So I fully support this. I've been working with Manresa Island Association for going on 3 years now, and you guys are doing a great job. You don't give up, and you lit the fire under a lot of us, and I fully support this.
Mr. Livingston.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also fully support this motion. I want to state that I had the privilege of working with the task force, in particular with Charlie and John, and I really commend them for their diligence, professionalism, and just hard work. I think it's clear to those of us who worked on it, and I guess probably the council, that we wouldn't even be considering this were it not for their efforts. And I think it's a great example of a public and private partnership that is clearly, I believe, in the best interest of the city. It really does, as others have said, enable us to plan for the future, to be prepared if and when energy does come, and sooner or later they will. And I think this gives us the unique ability to get ahead of the game, and I really support it. I think it's a wonderful thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Livingston. Ms. O'Toole-Giandirko.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for clarity for the record, at committee I voted no on this proposal, and it was only due to there wasn't sufficient backup in our packets, and it was just an oversight, and we were provided with that backup the very next morning, and it was detailed and exactly what I was looking for, so I'm prepared to support this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Kimmel.
Thank you. Again, I want to commend not only the Manresa Island folks, they did a wonderful job, but also the mayor for setting up a very interesting and competent task force to look in this. And with both sides working together, it was handled in a really responsible and a professional manner. And I'm very pleased with the outcome. I believe early on, the figure was about 80,000, 40 from each side. But once they dug into it and decided to really do this properly, the price tag went up. And to be honest, I was a little bit surprised that Manresa folks were able to raise that much money. That quite an endeavor, and we commend you. As Mr. Livingston said, this is an excellent example of public-private partnership on an important issue. In the overall context of our land use discussions over the last few years, we've been accused on several occasions, or more than several occasions, of being too reactive, not proactive, and operating only when we're in crisis mode, or what I once heard as concert hall mode, when people are so angry with some decisions that have been made that the concert hall ends up being filled. And this is a perfect example of really getting ahead of the curve and looking at things down the road to make sure we have the information we need when there's these issues that arise, and we know what we want, we'll know how to get it, and this is a great example of the way we should be acting on our major land use issues going forward. I appreciate, especially like the public-private aspect of it, because the public part of it often is spread so thin with so many issues that it's hard to really focus on a big, complex problem the way the problem requires. Once you're partnered with folks who have a level of expertise that City Hall may not possess, who really are spending time, effort, they have the background, they know the experts, that way you can really move forward and you do an excellent job. So this I think is an example to go forward with. Thank you.
Mr. Hempstead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I agree with Marvin Beach, having lived there for 25 years on River Drive, looking at the smokestacks, actually in the days when they used to burn coal and not oil, until they transferred over. At least the smoke was a little bit less when they switched to oil. I do agree, and I don't even consider this a private public as a public. It's the public and citizens that got involved, along with making sure government, which it elects, gets involved. And it's a very interesting concept. It's the first one, and I got a lot of experience at this, that I've ever seen this kind of combination, especially this magnitude. There's been smaller things over here, but nothing this magnitude. And it's really nice to see this move forward. The challenge, of course, with all this at the end of the day is once we get the report, what can we do with it? And it always saddens me, was just a kid in those days, but back in the 50s, you ever look in the old hours, there was actually a referendum in the city whether or not to buy that island, and the public said no, even though the city tried to stop the building of that power plant many years ago. There were many suits involved with it, and it's a shame. But even to me, it's a greater shame that the Fed and the state have identified that island over 15 years ago as one of the dirty seven in Connecticut and never did a darn thing about it. And to this day, we're still looking at a problem that nobody wants to admit that there's got to be some cleanup money for this, and we got to fix it. So maybe this will help put that pressure on all the other agencies that need to do it. And thank you all that were involved with this, really. Thank you.
Mr. Kimmel.
I would like to offer an amendment to the language.
Oh, well, I didn't speak yet.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So.
Ms. Bowman.
So I do have some issues with this item, and then I have two questions on this. My issues are that, one, the facts that were stated, we don't own the property, we can't step foot on the property, so timing is of question. It's my understanding through committee that this is being funded through an overage somewhere in the budget. And I think that if we have overages in the budget, there are right now problems that we could be using the funding for. So those are the reasons I have an issue. And some of the places that we could use the funding is our charter. The city should have a director of social services. We do not have one. So if there are overages in the budget, I think that the funding should be going to right now problems. So I just wanted to state that. My two questions are, one, for whoever's going to answer this, is one, why didn't you go with the low bidder? And then, is there any type of timeline as to when the property owner may be willing to even sell, as to why we are doing this right now?
I can't speak for the entire steering committee, but the bids actually in the RFP process were very close. They were all right around.
I think I saw one for like 120 something.
There was one that was a little bit lower, but if you had sat with us as your government council associates did, I think you would have been with us on the end.
Mr. Mayor?
Quality of the people.
Mr. Mayor?
The quality
Could
of
he
the
come forward so
Can you
we're
come
part of the
forward?
record if he's going to speak? Sorry.
Thanks. It's a good question on the bidding. I think if you've been with us through the process, as your colleagues were, and you had read the proposals, and then you had sat through the 4 presentations as we all did, it's no coincidence that we were able to that very afternoon, as Mr. Igneri described, we agreed like that on who the strongest team was. The quality of the people they brought into the room that they promised us to work with, and 3 of them are here. The 3 of them came tonight to be here, just to be here to answer questions for you if you have any. Was outstanding. Their experience in this kind of a project with a contaminated property, they have a lot of experience with this. This is not their first rodeo, And they also brought a level of creativity to their presentation. I mean, I'll give you a good example, which we really liked. We outlined the 4 or 5 options we thought should be explored for the property. And what they said to us in the nicest possible way, they didn't say this rudely, but they basically said, don't start with the options you think you should have. You know, let us look at all the facts and let's see what options best come forward. Don't start with the options you think are right. So they're basically saying to us that we've been through this before. You know, you guys are all lovely people, but you're amateurs. You know, we've been through this rodeo a bunch of times. Here's how we would approach it, and they had a great process where they would approach it, including, by the way, a lot of public engagement, which I thought was very creative, how they're going to engage the public. So it was easy for us to pick them, and there was no question in our mind for a few more $1,000s for the quality we were going to get, that they represented the absolute best choice. So we felt really good about that. And you had a second. What was your other question?
Do we have any idea of a timeline when the property owner may be interested in selling, or?
What happened when they first mothballed the property back in June of 2013, there was a public meeting at the South Norwalk Police Station, and I think it was the fall of that year, around October or November 2013. And that, of course, was one of our big questions. And at that time, they said, in terms of the outlook for the property, here's what they said. They said, we are not planning to repower the plant. We are actively looking for to sell the property or co-develop the property. That's what they said 3 years ago. Most recently, this past spring, I was able to get a phone meeting with the senior executive who's responsible for the property, the senior asset manager at NRG. And I was pressing her for an answer to that question, because I knew in our annual meeting, where we have several hundred people come in June of this past year, this year, that was going to be a big question. And as hard as I tried, and we, you know, we're not antagonistic with NRG. We're trying to be collaborative with them, because it's their property. You know, they're private property owners. So we've really tried to work with them. But in the most collaborative way possible, I sort of wouldn't stop it until I got an answer. And the best answer I could get was to be determined. She said, we are quote unquote, not actively marketing the property. And when I kept saying, well, what's your planned use of the property? To be determined. And you see, here's the catch-22 we have. The property is contaminated, and there has to be a remediation plan to clean up the contamination. But if you ask the DEP, and we've been in many meetings with the DEP in Hartford about this, if you ask the people responsible in Hartford at the DEP for this property, what they'll tell you is, well, we can't do our remediation plan until we know what the future use of the property is. Now that makes sense when you think about it, because if it's going to remain an industrial property, the cleanup standards are relatively low for cleaning up the contamination. If we were going to put homes out there or a park where kids were going to be on, the cleanup standards are very high. So the DEP can't entertain a remediation plan from the company until the future use is known. So if you're the CEO and you're trying to protect your shareholders and your bottom line, what you do is you never declare a future use. And if you never declare a future use, there can't be a remediation plan, and you don't have to spend any money to clean it up. So that's why I think they keep saying, well, we're not sure what the use of the property is. So they're not declaring their use or any intention for the use of the property. But what's great about this economic impact analysis, when this is done, it will be middle of this coming year, if you give us the green light tonight, come next August, September, they'll go through this incredible analysis they've got laid out, and we're going to have several options, we think, when we're all done. They're going to be, we hope, a win-win. That is, a win for the city, and we hope a win for NRG. We're going to show them some options that they can benefit from as well. We have been told by people who say they know, and this is all conjecture, who they say they've talked to senior executives at NRG, and this is just conjecture now, but we've been told by people, this is sort of, you know, back channel stuff, that they're interested in disposing of the property, but they have not shown any public show of that yet. Have I answered your question? Okay, thanks.
Any further questions, discussion? Mr. Soresis.
I'm in complete support. I don't have a question.
Okay.
I'm in complete support of the project and all the work everybody's put into it and the money that's been raised. I have no doubt this will pass. And like I said, I'm in complete support. However, I came here tonight symbolically. I was going to abstain from voting, only because I'm a representative in District A. And when you bring up the discussion of an economic analysis, it's all good and right, and all the intentions here are correct. And this is the right thing to do. The problem is I do represent Norwalk, but I also represent District A. And the gentleman that spoke that was working, I forget, at LaJoy's or wherever he worked earlier, had mentioned a synergy between business community and the district workers in the area. Well, we have the same problem in our area, and traffic is crazy in the Main and Wall Street areas because we have a lot of apartment buildings that have just been constructed. We have a lot more on the way. We have the one over the Main and Wall Street parking lot. We have High Point on High Street and Route 1, and we have a couple others that are in the plans. And the reason the timing is just wrong for me to say yes, and I have to abstain, is because there has been talk of a TOD in District A in that area. And that synergy, Transit-oriented district. That synergy we're talking about between the businesses and the people who work there and the property owners, it's very alive and well, and they've made their voice clear to me many times. I have the emails to prove it, and I even have numbers that were given to me. And the state of the uptown development at this point in time points to the fact that we want, not we, but we, the people that live in that area, and especially the business owners and property owners, they want an economic analysis in regard to restoring the uptown train platform. Because we all know economically, you can't have a TOD without a train platform. It's just, it's needed. And if you do the numbers work in favor of having to have that. We also have a building that's sitting on top of the proposed reinstallment of a train platform that was already there. That is can be on the verge of collapse. It hasn't been taken care of for some time, and if that collapses, it may injure someone on the street. It may injure a driver. It may cause damage to the platform underneath that makes it even more expensive to put in. So it may sound odd. I do support completely, but I would be remiss if I didn't abstain from the vote, and I'm abstaining knowing that it will pass. But I'm abstaining because we really need an economic analysis in Uptown. We got a lot, and it's important to everybody, the people on your side of town, every side of town, because that's a very dynamic area, and we've put a lot of money and effort into it. And if we don't have a train platform there, all the young professionals that are spending $2,000 to $3,000 to live in that area and want to walk, because that's what studies say, the under 30-year-olds want to walk to the train station. They don't want to drive to the train station. It's at a critical juncture, and I need the city and the people in that area, and the whole city really needs us to pay attention to that and make it of an urgent nature, only because of the state of development and the state of literally the state of the building that sits right on top and above where this proposed platform would be reinstalled. So please accept my answer. I'm always upfront and honest. I do believe in it. I'm completely in awe of all the work that went into this and the intelligence expressed in all the different points that were made here tonight. And I do hope and feel that the rest of the people up here will pass this. But unfortunately, I have to abstain this evening because the people of District A have told me by phone, by email, and in person that, we need an economic analysis as soon as possible. So thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Further discussion. Mr. Kimmel.
First of all, regarding the funding, I am under the impression that the Board of Estimate and Taxation has already passed this, and they looked into the funding and the various accounts and where it came from. So it has been already gone through the BET, which is the step that's generally taken before something like this gets to the council. I would like to offer an amendment to the language. After the listing of the account number, where it says and, after and, I would like to have it read thus: and authorize the mayor to execute the contract and related documents. So after the account number, it would read, and authorize the mayor or authorize Mayor Rilling to execute the contract and related documents.
Okay, so Mr. Kimmel has made an amendment to the item. We first vote on that amendment. All in favor of that amendment?
Good catch.
Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, before we vote on the item, I would just like to make a comment as well. I want to congratulate Mr. Mailing, Mr. Tani, Manresa Association, the Norwalk Land Trust. You bring to your volunteer work a passion for open space, responsible land use that is really amazing and much appreciated. You do a lot to protect the open space in the city of Norwalk, and I know everybody here and elsewhere really appreciates all the work that you and your associations do to protect that open space. I'd also like to take a moment to thank Councilman Livingston, Councilman McNary, Councilman Kimmel, as they attended many meetings of the Norwalk Land Trust, of the Manresa Association, to look at and listen to some of the things that were going on, and that's why it was so easy for them and for me to get on board with this process. It's a good, and as Mr. Hempstead said, it is more of a public-public project where members of the public and the public servants of the city of Norwalk banded together for a common cause and for the common good. So thank you to Manresa Association, thank you to the Norwalk Land Trust, and thank you to the council people who were so deeply involved. And I hope I didn't miss anybody. I know that probably others were involved, but when you start naming people, you run the risk of missing a few, and I hope I didn't. So, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion as amended? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, so Mr. Sarasis, Ms. Bowman, and Mr. Sims abstain. The motion passes 11 to nothing.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Should you get that check?
Check for $75,000.
I don't want it right now. I think if you bring it by tomorrow, it'd probably be a lot easier.
I literally got bumped in the parking lot, so cashier's check.
Liz will take it.
My people are waiting for you out there. It's for days out there.
Do you want Liz to take it?
Liz, if you want to take it now and lock it up overnight, give it to Liz right now, Charlie. Thank you.
It's a check, you never see a picture.
Next item on the agenda, Ms. Melendez.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Item 7D1, approve proposed Arts Commission ordinance. I'd like to move it and speak to it briefly.
Okay, Ms. Melendez.
I'm in support of this ordinance because I believe that having an ordinance that reaffirms our commitment to the arts and to our residents that value the arts is important. As a city, we have a lot to offer and to share, and it makes sense to have an official commission, not just a commission that's, if just depending on who the mayor is, but an official commission that will help us with that. I know that we will have some discussion now that this item is on the floor about some of the language of the proposed ordinance. But I'd like to urge my colleagues to support the ordinance after we've addressed those issues. Thank you so much.
Okay, Mr. Bonifant.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think you're putting something together that's pretty good here, but I don't think it's quite ready, and I have some issues with some of the words and the language in here. And if you'll take out your copy of in the first paragraph where it says, the commission shall consist of 11 members who shall be appointed by the mayor with the consent of the common council. I would say change that word consent to approval of the majority. And I'm only going through these because we have a request to move this and finish this tonight. So here we are doing a little committee work on the floor, which I'm not in favor of. I would have been sending it back to the committee, but that was not such, it didn't go over. Let's put it that way. So, because when we say the word consent around here, that sounds like unanimous. So I would change that consent to approval of the majority. And the last sentence of that same first paragraph, no person shall be appointed or reappointed to the commission unless they are a resident of the city. I would bump up that one notch or two notches to an elector of the city, because you're fishing at the bottom when you call anybody a resident, because you're looking at people who got thrown off the voters' rolls as felons. You're looking at undocumented illegals. You got a pool of people here. I would bump that up one notch to an elector of the city like the rest of the commissions have, okay?
Excuse me, Richard, could we call that a resident elector?
Change the word resident to elector, an elector.
No, can we add the word elector after resident and say unless they are a resident elector?
Saying that stating they live in the city as well.
Well, you can't be an elector in Norwalk unless you live in Norwalk.
What do you have an absentee ballot? You live somewhere else.
Yeah, but you're still a registered person in.
There's no reason, but you could add that. And
All right.
I don't think.
All right.
I'm just thinking about people that might live half the time somewhere else and half the time here.
All right, but right, an elector in the city of Norwalk.
Mr. Mayor?
All right,
All
right.
Okay, let's, I'm sorry?
I just had a question on that last point.
Okay, Mr.
You want
Wilson.
I can wait if you want. Before we get too.
Well, why don't we let
Go ahead.
Mr. Bonifant add all his items and
Yeah,
then we can have
I'll just throw
discussion.
them out there and,
Okay.
you can kick them around all you want. All right, the commission, the next paragraph, the commission shall include 2 members of the common council, 1 member from each political party. Well, that's kind of like saying an independent has no chance here or something. I would just say 2 members of the common council. I don't know how you want to change it, but, you're just assuming that no other person could get elected unless they're a member of like 1 or 2 political parties. That's kind of like an assumption I don't agree with.
Well, how about if you say no more than 1 member from any political party?
That's fine.
Or majority minority is another way to address it.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And let me see, the next section, officers and executive director who shall serve the pleasure of the commission, not working more than 19 hours a week. I guess that's a way not to go for the benefits. I wasn't there. Subject to available funding and have such duties and receive such compensation as shall be fixed by the commission. So they don't have to answer to, the commission will set all the compensation. It doesn't have to be approved by the council or the rest of the city or the personnel department or anything like that. That's a little bit shaky there. So, all right. Okay, and let me see. At the very end, they go, the commission's bylaws, rules, and regulations shall become effective upon approval by the common council. So we're going to approve of their rules and their bylaws, but not their hiring. They have to submit their rules and bylaws to us for approval. Okay. And I'm trying to figure out, do they have the power to spend money? It doesn't say that anywhere in here, other than hiring somebody without asking us. And I imagine somewhere in there you want to put that if they're going to put a display of artwork on city property, if it's in a park, and I mean, do they just have the ability to just plant something in any park without any approval from the Parks Department? Or can they just put up a display in any building in town without checking with land use and building management? I'm telling you, this ordinance isn't ready, okay?
You're making that clear.
Is there anything else? I'm sorry.
No, I have enough. No, I'm just kidding.
So you want to read that back to us?
No.
Mr. Kimmel.
If I may, to simplify the process, I would like to offer an amendment just to the second paragraph. I'd like to substitute this for the second paragraph that talks about common council members. Okay? So I would like to strike the second paragraph completely and substitute this. The commission shall include at least 2 members of the Common Council, comma, no more than 1 member per political party, comma, selected by the appropriate council caucus, period. The Common Council members shall serve only during their terms of office as council members. Okay, so the caucuses end up, that's what would have happened anyway, and that's a lot simpler. The caucuses would have ended up recommending somebody who wasn't overwhelmed and wanted to do it. And I think it covers the question that Mr. Bonifant raised about a third party.
Thank you.
Okay, so we would substitute that for the second paragraph. Regarding, since I have the floor, I do think approval of the majority instead of consent. I think that's a good addition. Regarding the some of the other questions, I think they've been answered. They were answered in committee. We already have procedures on the books, and I think we can go ahead with this. And if there are any problems, I think that we'll see them forthwith. Thank you. So I'm offering an amendment to the second paragraph, a substitute paragraph.
I would ask Mr. Bonifant if he would withdraw his recommendations for an amendment, or do you wish to?
Oh, well, I'm not sure I had an amendment, but.
Well, you were changing some of the language
Yeah.
as an amendment.
Right, I just threw it out there in case somebody else wanted to make an amendment to match it, but there it is.
Well, we have an amendment on the floor, correct?
Yep, we have an amendment on the floor, and I'm sorry if you're asking me the same question. So you changing the consent to approval of the majority and then substituting your paragraph for
yes,
the second paragraph. I'm okay with those.
All right, so let me get this straight.
We're just doing those first.
Wait, excuse me. So Mr. Bonifant's language change would be in the second sentence of the first paragraph to say the commission shall consist of 11 members who shall be appointed by the mayor with the approval of the majority of the council, of the common council.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes.
And you also want to put in there, in the last sentence, no person shall be appointed or reappointed to the commission unless they are a resident elector of the city. Is that correct?
Yep.
And then, you also had questions regarding the third paragraph under officers and executive director regarding compensation shall be fixed by the commission. And you also had a question regarding the bylaws. Do you still have questions regarding those issues?
Well, yeah, thank you. So if everybody's okay with the pay being approved by the commission and only the commission? Or don't you think it should be approved in the personnel committee and move forward through the council? They have the ability to spend money and pay a director whatever they want?
Yeah, I don't know where we are in the process, but I have a question on that because.
Okay, let's try.
I just throw that out there
Yeah,
for
that's
discussion, I
good,
guess.
yeah.
Okay, Ms. Bowman?
Yeah, I mean, actually, thank you for really just calling that to my attention, because now are we creating a department, or where is their funding coming from, and what is their bank account, and what is their ability, and do any other boards or commission have bank accounts or funding opportunities, and if are we creating a department, in which case, that is a very extreme for right now.
Okay, so are you done, Faye?
Okay, through the chair, please.
Sorry.
Ms. Melendez.
Okay, do you mind if Susan comes up and addresses some of those questions?
Okay, so Ms. Bowman has a question, and then I'll recognize Mr. Hempstead after that.
Just by clarification, this is an ordinance, the Arts Commission, just as provided, went to CCM and went through various departments to get sample ordinances from Middletown, Connecticut, and other ones that the state recommended that were short and sweet. The final product that you have, besides the good work of the Ordinance Commission, reflects the Law Department. The Arts Commission does not plan to become a department. It did not ask for staffing. It did not ask for a 19-hour-a-week position. It was simply explained by the Law Department that inserted that paragraph that this was just clarifying that at whatever point the Arts Commission, for example, the Historical Commission employs, I think, a part-time handyman, I'll use that term, labor to help. So many other entities, like the Historical Commission, have municipal budgets that go through the council, the BET. Nobody can do anything, put art on public places. If you're an official city commission, you operate under all the human resources, financial, land use, and every other regulation that applies to anybody else. So some of the detail in here, it was felt would be prudent for the future perhaps. But the Arts Commission currently, under the mayor's budget, has, at least for the last 10 years, I listed the names of people under the Moshe administration, had a modest budget of $10,000 to $15,000, and occasionally gets consultants. And if it wants to have a consulting contract, like you just heard with Manresa, it goes through the purchasing department. And we work very closely with the Historical Commission. So anything in here, to the best of my knowledge, and I'm not a lawyer, doesn't in any way, shape, or form supersede or obviate the need for following any, I sound like a lawyer, don't I? Obviate the need for dealing with any other requirement for regulation. At one point, we suggested just take out this 19 hours a week because we have no plans to hire it. But again, the law department said, let's put it in just to create, you know, a future provision. It would, of course, go through personnel, but not on our plans. We didn't ask for it. And the other changes seem very reasonable. Thank you.
Mr. Capola?
Did I answer?
Yeah.
Did I
If
answer your
I may
questions?
may
Thank you.
respond, I just assume the reason for suggesting that the language be there at this point in time is that we're creating the ordinance now, and otherwise, we would have to later amend the ordinance. Quite frankly, what would happen a lot of times, I think, is the commission may just go ahead and hire somebody, and then the ordinance actually never gets changed, and then years later, somebody realizes, hey, we never even changed the ordinance to permit hiring somebody. Did we have to have it in the ordinance or not? So I think the suggestion of having it in was, in the future, if you decide to hire an employee, the city knows what the parameters are. You're not going to hire a full-time employee who's then going to press for benefits from the city. So therefore, you put it in here that it's 19 hours. You're only authorized to hire somebody for up to 19 hours so that we don't have to worry about you hiring somebody for full-time compensation, including benefits, that we then have to deal with. So I think it was, more than anything, a precautionary measure. And the ordinance reads, the commission may appoint or hire. So it doesn't say shall, it says may. And obviously, there would have to be a funding source in order to do so. And for whatever it's worth, I mean, when you're dealing with an arts commission, quite often you do have benevolent members of the arts community, or organizations that maybe do provide funding to a commission such as this one that may be able to provide funding for that type of a position. But again, I think the point of clarification here, most importantly, is that it's 19 hours, so they're not eligible for benefits. I think that's why it was done.
Mr. Hempstead?
Just for procedurally, I think we have 4 amendments on the floor. 3 of them are just a change of words, 1 is a change of sentence, and that's what's been moved by Mr. Kimmel. So I think if we have questions about those 4 amendments, is the appropriate time to ask those, otherwise we need to act on those amendments, procedurally. And if we have other amendments, you need to, somebody else will need to move the other amendment, so.
Well, that's why I was trying to get everything
Right.
ironed out so we can vote on the amendment
there, so.
and then have further discussion.
Right, so I was just trying to figure out if we shouldn't just suggest that maybe we move on at least the
Mr. Kimmel.
First amendment.
Okay, well, should I combine all 3, your 2 and mine in one? Do you mind? I'm making.
Please.
Okay, here's, I make an amendment. First, Mr. Bonifant's amendment, in line 2, the word consent will be with the approval of the majority. And then at the last line of the first paragraph, resident becomes resident elector. Okay, then we scratch this entire second paragraph. And we substitute, the commission shall include at least 2 members of the common council, no more than 1 member per political party, selected by the appropriate council caucuses.
Excuse me, so, the commission shall include at least 2 members of the common council, comma, no more than 1 member
Per political party,
comma,
selected by the appropriate council caucuses.
and selected. and selected,
Fine, and,
it's selected by,
okay?
what was the rest of it, selected
The
by?
next, and selected by the appropriate council caucuses.
Right.
Then, the common council members shall serve only during their terms of office as council members. That's it.
I just have one maybe point here. The commission shall include at least 2 electors. That means that the caucuses could end up appointing 4 or 5 or 6 members. I think 2 members is probably the intent, so.
No more than one from each political party.
Well, yeah, but if you have 3, yeah, that's a good point, but if you have 3 parties or whatever.
I think what you said before was not more than one from any party.
Okay,
That makes sense.
so then would it be necessary to put the word at least?
At least, well, yes, because if you had, well, in 2001, it would have been interesting. You're
Yeah.
right. You're absolutely right.
That's a good point.
But neither Republicans or Democrats should ever count their chickens before they hatch. I don't think we'll have those kinds of riches again. But anyway, you're absolutely right. We could find ourselves in a little bit of a predicament there. Anybody have any ideas? Mr. Mayor?
Just leave it at 2 members. It shall
Okay.
include 2 members.
Okay. Then we go back to Mr. Bonifant's point, which we would have to deal with it.
Okay, now, are there any other, before we get to that point, are there any more parts of that amendment that you wish to include? I think everything else is good.
Yeah, no, that's what I want to address.
Mr. Hempstead.
Because Mr. Kimmel said he wanted to strike the entire paragraph, which I think is incorrect.
To strike,
What you need is the period after council member, and the word "and" struck out.
Say that again.
Well, I'm saying that the other terms of the office, they're mayor appointees. So
Yeah, well,
when
that's
those
the first
terms
paragraph.
expire or somebody resigns, the mayor gets to,
Any vacant, well, isn't that all covered by the first paragraph?
No, because, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor,
I know, that's what
Go ahead,
I'm
Ms.
saying.
Ms. Melendez?
the first paragraph refers to the actual commissioners from the art. This is the second paragraph is specific to the common
The
council.
council.
But the members on the council are part of the members of.
I got it, okay.
Total commission that is described in paragraphs.
The caucus we just.
I got it, Bruce, I'm sorry. I'm
Got
fine.
it, got it, got it.
Okay.
I got it, sorry.
So we're dealing with, so right on the floor now, we have 3 amendments. Approval of the majority, resident electors, and this paragraph, which now reads, the commission shall include 2 members of the common council, no more than 1 member per political party, selected by the appropriate council caucuses. The council members shall serve only during their terms of office as council members. It's understood if something happens, the appropriate caucus would immediately take action. That's the given. That's covered. So we have those 3 language changes before us right now.
Okay, so we have 3 language changes right now, and I hesitate to ask, are there any more additions or changes that wish to be discussed at this time? Mr. Corsello.
Yeah, I support the creation of the Arts Commission, but I don't support, not wholesale, but substantive changes to an ordinance being made in this manner. I think it's got to be, the ordinance has to be read as a whole. It needs time to be reflected upon. This has gone through many redrafts through the law department before it came to the council, and I don't think to just amend it at this point on the fly and then vote on something that we're going to be stuck with for some time is the right way to do it. Even though I support the creation of the Arts Commission, I can't support an ordinance that we've amended to this extent in this manner. So I think if we have issues with language of an ordinance, it should be sent back to an ordinance committee so that it can be.
Are you making a motion to table?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Corsello made a motion to table. Motion to table is not debatable.
Take a 5-minute recess, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry?
We take a 5-minute recess?
No?
No?
It's up to you. We can take a 5-minute.
I'd like to-
Mr.
3 minutes. 3 minutes.
Yeah, but you have the amendment on the table first. I'll take care of this.
I think in all fairness and the best way to handle this right now is to take a 3-minute recess. All in favor of a 3-minute recess? Opposed? Carries. Okay, 3 minutes.
All right.
Lori, why are you worrying Steve?
She was next door. She was around the corner. I didn't see her.
Sending it back.
We're sending it back.
Yeah, she did that.
Okay, we're back in session. We have where's Mr. Costello? Okay. We're back in session, and we have a motion on the floor by Mr. Corsello to table this item. Do you want to table it to Mr. Hempstead?
I was going to ask if he's going to table it back to the committee, and if the secretary could send at least the comments that are going around back to the committee, I think would be helpful, because the language is kind of developed here.
So, motion on the floor by Mr. Corsello to table. All in favor?
Date certain.
Is we opposed, abstentions, so carries. Is there a date specific that you would like to mention, Mr.?
When it's ready.
No, I think.
But the second meeting in June, you just don't want to, you just want to leave it like that? Okay. Okay, so the motion passes to table. Next item on the agenda is Mr. Igneri or Mr. Hempstead?
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Kides, all right.
Happy holiday.
Wish everybody a very, very Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah.
Just one more asking for you, Travis. Doug, excuse Shannon, she says, if you're on ordinance committee, I want to just pick your brain for 1 minute.